Alright, so what is B-roll?
In film and television production, B-roll, B-reel, or B-reel is supplemental or alternative footage intercut with the main shot. The term A-roll referring to the main footage has fallen out of usage.
So for example, if I'm talking about snowboarding behind an ATV and how fun it is, this right here is the A-roll. We don't really call it the A-roll, but it would be the A-roll. And then these are the B-roll clips showing how I'm suiting up, getting ready to snowboard behind an ATV. These are the B-roll clips. And now we're back to the A-roll. So that's what the B-roll clips are. So what's the point of B-roll? Well, it's to put visuals to the things that you're talking about. In an ideal world, your B-roll fits really well with the things that are being talked about or the overall theme of the video. It's so much better to show and tell instead of just telling the things that you're trying to get across. Usually for me, I like to make my B-roll really nice and cinematic. That's kind of my style. But not all B-roll has to be this epic 120 frames per second cinematic eye candy. As long as the B-roll fits your video, then that's good. It doesn't have to be 120 frames per second like a lot of people think. And there's nothing wrong with 120 frames per second. I just want to say that you don't have to use it. There's all sorts of different ways of showing B-roll. Find out what's the best way for your video and do it that way. B-roll should enhance your storyline. So if I'm talking about how I love traveling to warm places, I'm going to show clips from Maui or somewhere like that and not clips from Iceland where it's not warm. And okay, that's really obvious, but sometimes it's not as obvious what kind of B-roll to show, and a lot of people show just unrelated B-roll, and that gets boring really fast. The brain kind of tunes out because it doesn't understand, why are you showing this clip? This has nothing to do with the things that you're talking about. Unrelated B-roll can be really distracting, so you need to really think about what fits your storyline. And it doesn't have to be just, literal B-roll of the thing that you're talking about. You can symbolize things, or you can have an overall narrative over time, or you can use things like passage of time. This is one of the things that a lot of vloggers kind of miss out in their videos. They go from one place to the next without any kind of B-roll in between. And B-roll is a really good way of just showing that time has passed from this point to the next. So if you're traveling by car, get a few shots of you driving in the car. If you're flying somewhere, a few shots in there. Anything to kind of link the two things together. Time-lapse can also be a really great way to just show passage of time. It just, the speeding up of things just shows that, okay, time has passed now, and then you're in a new place. Okay, so how can we make sure that we get the best B-roll for every single video we make? I'm gonna give you guys a few tips, and I'm gonna use the snowboarding ATVing that we did with Peter as kind of an example for these. Number one, and I'm always talking about this, is planning it. Plan your shoot out. Plan what kind of B-roll you need and how you're gonna get it. What kind of equipment are you gonna use to get that B-roll? So think about your storyline, what's going on. If you're doing an interview of a surfer, you're gonna have some surfing footage in there. Maybe he's waxing his board, anything like that. Maybe you're talking about your hometown, so show some clips of your hometown. Or in this case, we were ATVing behind a snowboard, so there was just a ton of different B-roll we could get, setting up for it and actually riding around, all that stuff. But you also need to plan how you're gonna capture that. So what kind of gear are you gonna use? For example, with the snowboarding, we used some GoPros, and then we had some GorillaPods just stationary so we could just drive by it because we didn't have anybody else filming us. So we really had to think about, how are we gonna get enough footage even though nobody else is filming us? If we would have gone there, for example, without GoPros, without thinking about it, we would have missed a nice bit of B-roll getting those GoPro action shots. So plan out what kind of shots you need and how you're gonna get those shots. And number two is coverage. I've talked about this before. Don't just film random shots, film them kind of in sequence. Film a wide shot, film some medium shots, film some close-ups, film all sorts of different angles so that you have enough when you go to edit. You can never have too much B-roll. So again, with our snowboarding, we could have just filmed the actual snowboarding, but no, we filmed Peter suiting up, me suiting up, putting on our helmets, getting the tow rope ready, putting on the snowboard, turning on the ATV, all that stuff we filmed, because the more B-roll we have, the nicer edit we can make and the better story we can tell. Instead of just going from me talking and vlogging to all of a sudden being behind a snowboard, we have this nice build up to the action. You're gonna have a way better time in your edit because you're not gonna be struggling to find the right shots, or you're gonna be struggling because you don't have enough shots, and you're also gonna be telling a better story. Number three, be creative. Figure out some really cool different kinds of shots. Once you've gotten your basic kind of coverage shots, think about what kind of interesting creative angles you can get. We were trying to rack our brains where we could stick the GoPro and it wasn't really working out, but go through that process of thinking about what kind of creative angles you can get, because those are sometimes the coolest shots in the whole video. And because they're not your typical shots, people are kind of wowed by those shots. This is the rig that I used to get that intro shot. I put some plastic wrap in here so it wouldn't get my lens all dirty, and then I opened it up and I could still film at the same time. So I went through the trouble of just for that one shot rigging up this whole thing, and I think it pays off. I think it looks cool. It's an interesting way to open up the video. So in your B-roll, think about how you can be creative. Number 4, I would say take your time with B-roll. A lot of people just kind of rush with B-roll and oh, that's good enough. Do not say that's good enough. B-roll is probably one of the most important things in your video. This is really the place where your footage has an opportunity to shine, where you can really flex your creative muscles and show what you're capable of. In any given portfolio or reel, when people show off kind of their work, it's all the B-roll. You're not showing these talking faces very much because the B-roll is the really high quality stuff. So don't rush it. This is where you have your chance to shine and kind of show what you're made of. If it doesn't look good, switch it up, try something different, keep working at it until you have some really nice looking B-roll. And one of the big things here is to use light properly. That's really gonna help you out. So trying different angles to work with the available light, because a lot of times we don't have light set up. Use that light and you're gonna get really nice B-roll. With B-roll, do not say good enough. Keep working at it, make it the best it can be. And number 5, always leave time for B-roll. B-roll can sometimes be like the last thing on the to-do list, like, all right, let's just get some B-roll. We only have 5 more minutes, let's just do this really quickly. And that can be one of the worst things for your videos because the B-roll is so important. And I'm guilty of this, especially with YouTube. There's so many times where I'm just wishing in the edit that I had some more B-roll to make it a little bit more interesting or to show what's going on. But because I didn't leave enough time, I don't have enough B-roll. So make sure you're prioritizing B-roll, especially if you have a crew that you're working with. Make sure there's enough time to shoot B-roll in between the interviews or whatever else you're doing. So there's some kind of practical tips on how to get really good B-roll. There's all sorts of creative stuff that we can do. Think about composition and lighting and lens choices and all those things. But these are the practical things that you can kind of ensure that you're getting the best possible B-roll for every single video that you're working on. You want to be consistent, and these things are going to keep you consistent.